Welcome to another episode of We Are United for a Healthy Stoughton. We are excited to be here today to talk about medication safety and our youth. So I have two guests with me this afternoon here in the studio. I'd like to introduce Nurse Donna Kaplan from the South School and Todd Brown, a pharmacist who was with me previously, actually talking about adults and medication safety issue. Today we're going to talk about how to have those same conversations with your kids and a really great program that we piloted at the South School. So why don't we jump in? Why is it important to talk about medication safety with our kids?
Well, when you're watching the news every day, you see something in the news about substance abuse and opiates. So it's important that we teach our young students at a very young age to ingrain in them the importance of being safe with medication and drugs so that they foster lifelong healthy choices.
And we know that medications can do wonderful things when they're used appropriately, but when they're not used appropriately, they can also be very dangerous. And so we need everybody to understand that, from adults to children, and this is our way of reaching them to make them understand that medication can be dangerous.
Great, right. And I actually, this is actually pretty timely because I know in the news, I think it was yesterday, there was a story about a very young child actually who had ingested accidentally, I think her grandmother's must have been an opiate medication, because there was a story about the paramedics using Narcan on this very young child, which is scary. A different scenario than certainly the opiate epidemic, or we're thinking about folks who are misusing for recreational use. But especially with youngsters, the whole poison control issue I think is also very, very important. So tell me about this second grade medication safety program, because it's pretty exciting.
Okay. Todd Brown and I co-taught the class. Its purpose was to be an introduction and an awareness to the students for medication safety, and trying to instill in them the fact that they can also be responsible for their own health and safety. We started off the program by sending a letter to the parents so that they knew that the lesson was going to be taught. They did have the opportunity to opt out of the program for their child. In this particular class, there were no parents that opted out. It was a great way to start the class. We taught a little bit about medications. We did a PowerPoint presentation, and we played a game at the end called Good Choice, Bad Choice. Several scenarios were presented, and the students were able to hold up a red card or a green card to show whether they thought the choices that they made for this particular scenario were good. After the class, we sent home some literature to the parents about what was taught, and the students all received a book, this book right here about substance abuse, and a refrigerator magnet, Medication Safety Begins at Home, so that hopefully they could all hang that up. And it had some basic medication safety rules on it.
And they also received medication safety badges,
Right.
Saying that they were now medication safety experts. And the whole program was designed to complement the show that we did for adults on medication safety, but really in an effort to try to get all family members to practice basic medication safety principles.
And we also wanted to let the parents know that if they had expired or unused or not medications that were no longer needed, that they could bring them to the police station where there's a kiosk to accept all those medications. We didn't want any extra medications hanging around homes, especially during school vacation, which when a lot of people would be home and visitors would be in the home. So we purposely sent out this information prior to that vacation so that that could be taken care of as well.
Great. And I feel like that's something important. We should say that again, because I think there are still a lot of folks who are unaware that we have this drug kiosk in the police station. So I always like to say it as frequently as possible. If you're not aware, in the lobby of the Stoughton Police Department, there's a big thing that looks like a mailbox, so you don't have to go any further than the lobby, and it accepts all sorts of prescription and non-prescription medications. You literally open the slot like you would a mailbox, and you can dump your pills in there. It does not accept things like liquids and ointments, and certainly we can't put sharps in that container. It would be dangerous for the officers that are emptying it. But all of the items that go into that container are then weighed by the police department and transported to a facility that actually incinerates them free of charge to the Commonwealth. So it was a deal that was brokered by the district attorney a number of years ago. We're very lucky to have this box. It's always available 24/7. So anytime you think of it, you can go and get rid of anything extra. Don't keep it hanging out. And You don't have to talk to anybody, and you can just put your medication in there. If you're in a position where you have larger amounts, maybe you're moving, maybe somebody has passed away in your family, we do twice a year on Hazardous Waste Day a prescription drug disposal, a take-back day, and those are opportunities where, if you have sort of things in bulk, you have old medical supplies, you have those liquids and ointments and sharps as well. The take-back is actually a good opportunity for that, but we do also have a sharps container in the fire department. So folks who maybe, are regularly using syringes for things like diabetes medications for themselves or even their pets can dispose of them safely at the fire station. So just a reminder about that. So tell us where this program came from, because we didn't invent this, right?
That's right. It was originally used as an educational toolkit from the Ohio State University College of Pharmacy and the Cardinal Health Foundation. We modified it for use in Stoughton, and we piloted it in a second grade classroom at the South with the intention to bring it to all the other schools in the springtime.
Mm-hmm. Great. Do you want to add anything to that, Todd? Or?
Yeah, it's part of a Generation RX program where they have lots of different educational programs for different age people, and this was one that was tailored for this age student, and we kind of tailored it to personalize it to Stoughton.
Which is great, and we're seeing some footage of what was happening in the classroom right now, which is great. If folks are interested in this program, you actually can go on the internet and search for Generation RX Cardinal Health, and you will be able to find all of those materials. So if you're interested in sort of the adult version of this, you actually can take a course, a web-based course online on your own time. There are materials for teenagers, there are materials that are directed at seniors, lots of really great information. So it's a good site to visit if you're interested in learning more about this on your own. So let's talk about what some of the key concepts are of this program. What are some of the lessons that we were hoping our second graders were going to take back with them and share at home?
Okay. Well, the first thing we did when we started off the class was to lay down some ground rules. We wanted the kids to pay attention and not tell us stories. We wanted them to listen to what we had to say and then ask questions. And primarily, we didn't want to hear stories about their family that may be confidential, so we explained to them that that was not an appropriate part of this class. Mm-hmm. And then we talked a little bit about what medicines are, and then we talked about what kind of people are appropriate to give them medicine. We talked about nurses, doctors, pharmacists, paramedics, firefighters, parents, or any of their trusted caregivers, and that they're there to help keep us healthy and safe. And then Todd spoke about the different types of medicines. There's oral pills, inhalers, the shots, which they all kind of cringed at, and why we need to have them, why we need to take them. And then I spoke generally about sharing medication and that it's not appropriate. And we talked about things that are appropriate to share, that medication is definitely something we do not share. And the importance of looking at the labels and taking the medication exactly as the pharmacist, doctor, nurse, parent has told them to take it. And keeping them safe, so that making sure that the medications are kept in a safe, secure area of their home. And we kind of gave them that job of talking to their parents about making sure that their medications are safe, especially with the holidays coming out and a lot of visitors. We wanted to make sure not only the second grade students we were talking to, but also their family. They might have younger siblings, younger cousins that might be coming to visit, and we wanted to make sure that everybody had a safe, locked location for their medication. On the other hand, they might be going to other people's homes, grandparents, and you just mentioned that story about the grandmother.
Right.
And I did actually say something like that. You go to grandma's house, and many older people tend to leave their medication out on the counter, not even in pill bottles. They may just leave them on the counter. And so we really wanted to instill in the students that they shouldn't touch anything that looks like a medicine or possibly even candy, because you don't know what it is. I actually brought with me a little gummy bear vitamin.
Oh, maybe we can switch back to the studio shot so we can see the gummy vitamin. There we go.
And show them that it looks just like a gummy candy that they might eat. And so the importance of making sure that you don't take any food or medicine that is not given to you by a trusted adult. And we really wanted to make sure that that was a point taken by the students.
Great.
Also, we wanted the students to know that if they see medication that is accessible in a low-lying area, They can help protect their younger siblings by alerting an adult, as well as any pets that might be available. And so, a lot of times if there's medication down low, as adults we don't look there, but children do, and so they can protect their younger siblings or their pets from accessing those medications.
Great.
And it's an accident too. Sometimes I've seen in my own house, you try to take the pill out of the bottle, it accidentally falls on the floor. You're not sure if you dropped one pill, dropped two pills, you try to find them.
Right.
And so it's, it's real important that we mention to the kids that if they see something on the floor that could be a food item or a pill or a medication, that they should bring it, let an adult see it.
Right. Terrific. So maybe we can show, we have a short clip of how we were sharing these materials with second graders, because a lot of this content came across as a game, which we had mentioned earlier. So if we could share that short clip with some sound there, that would be great.
So we're going to play a little game, and we're going to have questions, and it's going to be good choice or bad choice. And so if it's a good choice, you're going to hold up the green smiley face. And if it's a bad choice, you're going to hold up the red frowny face.
So Jack decides to share his medicine with Susie. Good choice or bad choice?
We never want to share our medicine. Our medicine is just for us.
So here's another one. Kevin, after listening to the medication safety class, tells his parents that medicine should be stored in a secure cabinet at home. Good choice or bad choice?
Good.
Julie is 6 years old and she feels sick. She figures that she could make herself feel better, and she goes and finds some medicine and takes it all by herself. Good choice or bad choice? Bad choice. So here's another one. Jonathan isn't sure if if this medicine that he has is candy. He decides to eat it anyway. So here's a girl named Julie, and she discovers, or she finds, an object that could be medicine or it could be candy. Right over here. So she decides to tell an adult right away. Good choice or bad choice?
Excellent. Yeah. Medication can be dangerous.
Great. So I know one of the questions that people sometimes have is why second grade, and why did we pick the South School? Was there something going on? What were our reasons behind those two things?
Well, part of my job as a school nurse is to educate the students about their bodies and about ways that they can be healthy, to teach them about their responsibility in keeping themselves healthy as well as their caregivers. It is one of my favorite parts of the job is to teach, so I really looked forward to this opportunity, and I really feel it's important for kids to be healthy in order to be educated. And there's one of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Jocelyn Elders, and she says, "You can't educate a child who isn't healthy, and you can't keep children healthy who are not educated." So it was geared towards second graders so that we could educate them young, get them started really early in providing a foundation for healthy living, healthy choices, healthy lifestyle, and safety.
I think it was also nice that we were able to incorporate that into a game so that kids could enjoy it and have fun and learn while they were playing that game.
Right. And the South School was selected not because there was a challenge, but actually because Nurse Kaplan was willing and excited to pilot this program. So I think we had mentioned earlier in the program, the intention is to roll this out across the district with all of the other schools, but we needed to find somebody who was excited to try it out for the first time, see how the materials worked out, see if how the game flowed, and so it was wonderful. And I think it was just really great to be able to partner with you guys at the South School, and the administration was really supportive, and so that was really wonderful. The other piece for us that is also really important was getting some of this information out to parents. And I know we had talked about second graders are both old enough to receive this information and kind of be good carriers of this message and really be able to take it in, but also their parents are probably still reading the stuff that comes home in their backpacks. They haven't sort of moved beyond that place where they're, the parents aren't sort of checking to see what materials are coming home, and they're reviewing them with them. And we were hoping, with the magnets we provided, where it could be actually colored in by the students at home, so that maybe they would make that a little bit of a project. It would go on the fridge as a reminder. It would serve as a conversation piece. The lanyards that we gave students with the medication safety badges, they were very excited about as second graders, and in fact made possibly have caused disruption in class the rest of the day. But our hope was that they would wear them home, and that when they got home, their caretakers would ask them about it, and that they could have a conversation about what they learned in school, both reinforcing it for themselves and hopefully maybe sparking some changes in their households. So that's terrific.
And the program can be adjusted for older students. I think you can just have a more in-depth conversation, age appropriate, of course, and allowing for more questions and answers. And again, just instilling to them their responsibility, especially as they start moving to the older grades in middle school when there's a lot of peer pressure. It's really important for them to know ahead of time their own judgments.
And medication safety is a very important message, something that we need to be able to give in multiple ways, multiple times, so that people can learn all of the facets of it and make sure that they can be safe at home.
Great. So there was a piece we had talked about with the information that was shared with parents, and you shared some of those materials. So can we talk a little bit about kind of some of the content that was in there, and then even how parents could use that information to talk to their kids or folks watching at home, that type of information?
One of the pieces of paper that I sent home to the parents was a discussion about label safety and making sure that they read the labels. It's hard to read, I think, on here, but it did actually give an example of a label and what's on a label for medication, and so that they could actually see how important it is to read the labels on all medications. And if there's a discrepancy with what's on the label and what's in the bottle, it's always important to make sure that you check that out as well. We did send the letter home ahead of time to the parents to let them know that the program would be taught. And we sent home the book. And I think the book is a nice way to introduce to kids, just letting people know that it is out there. Anytime a student takes medication, I think it's important to let the student know what the medication is, why they're taking it, what it looks like. Just give appropriately aged information for the student, details about the medication. And it's important for them to ask. I know that when I give medication in school to any of the students that have to take it, they come in and they need to tell me, what color the pill is, so that we all know that we're taking the right medication. So it's important for them to know that as well. You just never know when someone's going to grab the wrong one. And if Johnny says, "Mom, I thought that I take a pink pill," right, and you're giving me a white one, it's just an extra check. So for students to take some responsibility on their own.
And it's important for people of all ages to be responsible for their own medication too, as much as they can, age appropriate. And so to start to instill that in younger children is important, because they're going to need that as they grow older.
Right. One of the other things that we did talk to the students about is taking the medication appropriately, and that, especially for kids that have pain, and for an ear infection or something, and if they're supposed to take it 2 or 3 times a day, they say, well, I'm having so much pain, maybe I should take it 5 times a day. Instead, maybe it'll go away faster, and I'll feel better sooner. And again, it's important that the doctors and the pharmacists go to school for a very long time to learn the appropriate ways to give medication, and so that the directions are the directions, and that's how you take it. And you're not supposed to skip medications just because it doesn't taste well. So those are the important things about the labels and following the directions exactly as written.
And I think we were able to indirectly teach the students a little bit about different healthcare professionals and what their role is, and how that relates to medication and medication safety.
Right, great. So I know we interviewed a few students at the end of the course, so I'm wondering if we can play their little interview clips for a minute here and hear from our second graders about exactly what they learned.
So Jordan, you participated in the class and you played the game with us. What did you learn from this class today?
That it's not okay to share your medicine.
Did you learn anything else?
That if you have to ask the parent first before you try it.
Before you take any medicine? That's great. And can you tell me why it's important not to share your medicine with anybody?
Yeah, because if you share it, the other person could get sick.
Great. Okay, you're a medication safety expert now. And so my last question is, where should all your medicines in the house be stored?
They should be stored high up, so if you have little siblings, they wouldn't try to get it because it looks like candy.
Great, you're a medication safety expert now.
Great. So I think our students really were able to both enjoy themselves and take a lot away from the program, which is really wonderful. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of how this fits in with OASIS and sort of our broader plan to impact youth substance use in Stoughton, because it seems it's a very different project than the kind of work that the coalition typically does. It's a much younger population. It just looks very different than a lot of our policy work. And so I wonder if either one of you want to speak to that a little bit and sort of how you see this fitting into the bigger picture of preventing prescription drug misuse and recreational use of these things.
Well, I think on behalf of OASIS, we engage in a number of activities to try to keep our community healthy. Mm-hmm. And so this fits in very nicely with that. It's a group that maybe we haven't targeted before, but I think we're going to want to continue to target different groups in different ways, multiple times. And once again, medication safety is something that we really can't talk enough about. So that, I think this was a good thing, and I'm hoping that we can do more of it. Mm-hmm.
Right. And as we mentioned before, our young students are so impressionable at this age, and their brains are like sponges. They just take it all in. Mm-hmm. And I think that with the way it was presented in the game, and we made it a fun lesson. Mm-hmm. I think they'll remember it, and I think it's be in their brains. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, the next time they come across the opportunity to take some medication, whether it's prescribed by a doctor or by their parent giving it to them, they'll maybe think about why they're taking it and learn a little bit more about it.
Or if they see medication that's accessible, they'll alert an adult so mm-hmm. that, their younger siblings or their pets don't get at it.
Right, which is great. And so really, and I think as you had said, kind of instilling those messages early about taking medication as prescribed, sort of those key components, which build for conversations that parents can have later on as their kids get older and they're teenagers, and they may be exposed to peers who are unfortunately using drugs in a recreational way, that these are sort of those same messages that you would start with. And then as a parent, some of the same key things that we always talk about with parents is sort of throughout and developmentally appropriate, setting limits with your kids, being aware of what they're doing, knowing what they are watching on social media and on television, using those as opportunities to talk, being aware of who their peers are and where they are, as they get older, things like setting limits and curfews, and being really clear about expectations related to, any substance use. So, this is sort of a very early piece that you can do. We did not talk to these children, these second graders, about people abusing drugs or about the heroin epidemic or opiates or even alcohol or marijuana or any of that stuff, not appropriate in this classroom setting. But certainly some of these kinds of discussions about sort of what's healthy and the kinds of things you put in your body really do lay a good foundation for parents to have those more complicated and nuanced discussions, I think, as their kids get older. So I think in that way, this is an important piece to the work we do. This is certainly very, very early prevention messaging. But the other part I think that's important for all of us is remembering that for older students and adults who are unfortunately using prescription pills in a way that's recreational or not as prescribed, one of the primary ways people get these things is access through other folks' legitimate prescriptions. So excess medication in the home, in people's medicine cabinets. So that's why this whole piece about disposing medication safely is important. So both from sort of a poison control perspective and also from preventing easy access for other use. So getting these messages into the homes of families, which hopefully will be an ongoing message. People will get used to using the drug drop box, those take backs, knowing those resources are out there is also really important. So another way, as Todd was saying, thinking about multiple ways to reach folks. We're hoping this show does the same, that this will remind you that you have lots of options for disposing medication. If you have children, this hopefully will give you some ideas about how to talk to them about some of these issues and to sort of help them be part of that process as well. So I'd like to ask you, we have just 2 minutes left, if either of you has any final thoughts about this program or this issue in general.
I think it's just important to get the message out early so that kids learn to make this a habit, just like exercising and eating right. take your medicine as you're supposed to, don't take anybody else's medicine. It's the same message to try to make sure that the kids learn how to take responsibility for their own selves, and as well as having their parents help them, but also just to make sure that they stay healthy in all around, a holistic message for health and safety.
Yeah, and it was great to be able to interact with the second graders at the South School and be able to convey that message, you know, and really just the concept that medications are great and do wonderful things when they're taken appropriately, but when they're not taken appropriately, they can be just as dangerous and do very bad things. And I think that's a message that that we need to convey to people of all ages multiple times, so that we can really understand that in its many facets.
Great. And I was so impressed at how well you managed that second grade classroom. The comment you made earlier about how students love to tell stories, and we certainly, in that setting, we didn't want to be hearing people's personal stories about what was happening in their household, but how quickly you were able to recognize, nope, that is not a question, that is a story, so we're not going to talk about that here, was great. But it was fun how they really were excited about the topic, and they did want to share, even though that was not our intention for that type of sharing to be happening there. So I'd like to thank both of my guests again for joining us. So Nurse Kaplan from the South School, Todd Brown, a local pharmacist and member of the steering committee of the Oasis Coalition. We hope that you are able to see some of our other shows. We know that they're available on local cable access, as well as you can find them on the SMAC website. You can find them on the Oasis webpage and on our social media pages. So if you haven't found Oasis on the internet yet, please look us up. We love to share stuff, particularly through Facebook. So we're Oasis Stoughton on Facebook. And our website is www.stoughtonoasis.org. And we hope to see you again soon. Thanks to our folks in the booth for helping to produce this, and have a great day.